Hello everyone. This lesson we're going to focus on solving quadratic equations where we can't use factorization to solve it. To do this, we're going to be using the quadratic formula. Now, I know at the first look of it, it does not look very nice, but it is not as bad as it looks. Okay, so we use this when we cannot factorize an equation. In a later video, once we've gone through how to do a technique called completing the square, I will actually show you where this formula comes from. But I'm not going to do that in this video. Our aim of this video is to make sure that we can use this formula. The first key thing we're going to look at before we look at an example is how I've written the general formula at the top. A key thing is that the number in front of the x squared I'm going to call A. The number in front of the x I'm going to call B. And the number at the end I'm going to call C. These are really important that you get correct, and it's also important to check the signs in front of each of them. Now, this formula, which I said looks scary, is one you will need to know for your GCSE. There are many ways of trying to remember it, but one thing we're going to do this session, and when you practice this yourself, is before you start every question, write it down. It will help it stick into your brain. Okay, I think we are ready to do our first example. So this is the first one we're going to look at. We're going to look at x squared minus 5x plus 3. You might think, yes, we can factorize this. But are there two numbers that multiply to make 3 and add to make minus 5? Not very easy to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the formula to solve this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down what A, B, and C are. So A is always the number in front of the x squared. Now the official word for the number in front of a letter is called the coefficient. So A is the coefficient of x squared, the number in front. Now, do you remember when there's not a number there, what number is actually written? It is the 1 that is hidden. So A is 1. B. Most people would write this, but it's incorrect. B is not 5. Look again at what the number in front of the x is. B would be minus 5. Lastly, C is the number at the end, the coefficient at the end, which is 3. So we've got our 3 numbers that will go into our formula. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to write the formula out. Now don't be worried about this plus or minus symbol. I will be going through that in a moment. So I'm writing the formula down every time to make sure I help remember it. Okay, I am now going to put all the numbers in the right place, but there's a few pitfalls that we've got to be careful for. First of all, this first term says minus b. Okay, so there's a couple of ways we could write this. You could say minus 5, but you should remember your negative number rules. Minus 5, two minuses make a positive. So this at the front is actually 5. So this minus b actually changes the sign of whatever's there. So I'm now going to put this plus or minus symbol. All right, key thing where people make mistakes, b squared. Watch how I write it, because if you don't do this, your calculator will do it wrong. You have to use brackets and put the squared outside. If you don't, your calculator will square the negative number wrong. So we've got minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared. Now we're going to do minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Do not skip this step of writing down the numbers in the right place. That is where I'm going to get my method mark from. Now, I've got my calculator out. We're now going to actually show you how to write this in. Okay? Now, the reason we have two symbols here is that means I'm going to do the sum twice, once with a plus in it and once with a minus in it. So we can type it in how it looks. So first of all, I'm going to hit the fraction button to get this up. Now, top row, 5. I'm going to start off with a plus sign there. Square root, I'm remembering my brackets. Minus 4 times 1 times 3. And at the bottom, 2 times 1. And I'm going to push equals. Now, it will often give your answer up in a third. But if you remember to switch it to a decimal, we have this S to D button. I'm going to press that now. The answer was, to 2 decimal places, 4.30. That is one of our solutions. But there are 2 solutions when we solve a quadratic. Now what I need to do is type this in again, but instead of having a plus here, I'm going to put a minus. So I could type it all again, or I'm going to use my arrows, and I'm actually going to go along, press delete, and change that to a takeaway, and press equals. So I now have my second solution. I'll push SD, 2 decimal places, 0.70. And we have solved this question, this equation, through using the formula. I'm going to do one more example to make sure you're happy with this. Let's have a look at this one. Now, if you want to pause the video and have a go ahead of me, please do so. But we're going to start now. Now, there is something I have done in the question that can make people go wrong. Some people will see this and say, well, A is 10, B is 1, and C is 8. Not correct. It's important that you know A is the number in front of x squared. Now, if you wanted to, you can rewrite this into the order that we are used to. You don't have to, and with practice, you won't need to. So, A is the number in front of x squared, which is 1. B is 8, and let's check. Yes, it is a positive 8. And C, yes, it is a positive 10. These are my numbers. Because I'm trying to memorize the formula, and you need to do this as well, write the formula out. Now we're going to put each of the numbers in the correct space. Minus B. So that means, this is what I said last time, if this is positive, it will become negative. If it is negative, it will become positive. B squared, use my brackets. Minus 4 times A times C. This is all over 2 times A. Now we're going to type this into our calculator. Fraction button first. Minus 8 plus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 10. And up top, bottom, 2 times 1. Again, for the first time through, I've used the plus there. And I've got a third answer again, so I'll push SD. And my answer to 2 decimal places is x equals minus 1.55. I'm going to use my arrow and I'm going to go across, change the plus, minus, and press equals and SD. So my second solution is minus 6.45 to 2 decimal places. Key things to remember when getting your A, B, and C, make sure you check the signs in front. The first term, minus B, means you change. If this was positive, it becomes negative. If it's negative, it becomes positive. And secondly, when you do B squared, use brackets with the squared sign outside. I hope you found this video useful, and I think now it's time to practice using your quadratic formula.